experienced before.
Exactly.
And when you come out of a deep, deep darkness, your joy and your happiness is different.
And everybody sees that.
And you measure it different, and it shows different because of the darkness that you've been through.
Yeah.
It comes out different, and you appreciate.
The truth you weren't ready for just exploded. Rodney Howard drops a bombshell leak exposing Joni Lamb's darkest secrets with Doug Weiss, and the Christian world is reeling. What they tried to hide for years is finally out in the open. Scandal, lies, and betrayal like you've never seen before. Watch now before it's erased. This shocking revelation will change everything about Daystar forever. The story of Joni Lamb and Doug Weiss is one filled with both public scrutiny and private struggles. When Joni, a well-known figure in Christian media and co-founder of Daystar television network, entered a relationship with Doug Weiss, a respected Christian counselor, it quickly became a topic of intense discussion. This wasn't just any relationship. It was unfolding in the spotlight, with millions watching and judging. Joni had lost her husband Marcus Lamb in 2021, a moment that shook both her personal life and the ministry they built together. Moving forward with Doug Weiss only 2 years later sparked a wave of emotions. Some people were genuinely happy to see her finding love and support again, understanding that grief is complex and healing takes time. But many others were concerned, wondering if the pace was too fast and if the relationship was truly healthy. The public backlash was loud, with fans, viewers, and other Christian leaders questioning the decision. Questions about Doug's past, including his previous marriage and divorce, added fuel to the fire, raising doubts about his suitability as a partner to Joni and a leader beside her in the ministry. Behind the scenes, things were just as complicated. Joni's family, especially her children, reportedly struggled with the relationship. They were still mourning Marcus and worried about the impact Doug's presence would have on both their mother and the future of Daystar. Private tensions grew as family members voiced their concerns, but these were met with resistance. Joni stood firm, convinced that her relationship was guided by God and that she had prayed deeply about it. This conviction made her less open to the doubts expressed by those closest to her. At the same time, the ministry faced challenges. Some respected Christian organizations began pulling their support from Daystar, worried that the leadership's personal choices were affecting the network's integrity. Internally, there were whispers of spiritual and ethical concerns, with a few leaders privately expressing discomfort about the direction things were heading. Even long-standing friends like Pastor Robert Morris reportedly felt troubled, urging caution and patience, though he chose to keep his concerns private. The turmoil between public opinion and private reality painted a difficult picture for Joni. She was caught between her need to heal and find happiness and the heavy responsibility of leading a ministry watched by millions. The criticisms and accusations, some fair, some harsh, added pressure to an already painful transition. This story isn't just about a personal relationship. It's about the complexities that come when private decisions intersect with public leadership. It's about grief, faith, loyalty, and the harsh glare of public judgment. As this chapter continues to unfold, many are left wondering how Joni will navigate these challenges, balance her personal life with her ministry duties, and whether healing and unity can eventually be restored, both in her family and in the ministry she helped build. The story of Daystar's recent struggles is one marked by a sharp decline in reputation and a leadership crisis that has shaken the foundation of what was once one of the most influential Christian television networks in the world. For years, Daystar stood as a beacon of faith, drawing millions of viewers with its uplifting programming, inspiring sermons, and its powerful message of hope. Co-founded by Marcus and Joni Lamb, the network was more than just a TV channel. It was a ministry that touched countless lives, a source of spiritual guidance and encouragement for many believers around the globe. But in recent times, cracks have appeared in this shining image, revealing deeper problems that have caused supporters and partners to question the integrity and direction of the ministry. At the heart of the issue is the leadership turmoil that began to intensify after the passing of Marcus Lamb in 2021. His death was a huge loss, not only personally for the family, but also for the ministry itself. Marcus was the charismatic face of Daystar, the driving force behind its growth and success. When he died, the network lost not just a leader, but a symbol of its mission and values. Joni Lamb, his widow, stepped into a role that was both deeply challenging and scrutinized from every angle. While many expected her to continue Marcus's legacy with humility and grace, the reality soon became more complicated. The leadership transition did not go as smoothly as hoped. Questions began to arise about the decisions Joni was making, especially when her personal life became entwined with the ministry.
The things that are being said, even to the point of people saying that probably I killed Marcus in the hospital because I was having an affair, blah, blah, blah. And Rodney Howard Brown got mixed up talking to you and told Jimmy that Doug was texting me or sexting me. He never sexted me. He is a pure man. We didn't have sex till we got married. That he was sexting me in January after Marcus died in November is a complete lie. Well, Jonathan knows that. But the lie was perpetuated because Rodney went and told other people and other people. That's the damage that you've done to me. And the damage that you've done to a godly man who has integrity and is known for his integrity.
One of the major turning points was Joni's relationship with Doug Weiss, a well-known Christian counselor with a controversial past. The speed of their relationship and subsequent marriage raised eyebrows among viewers, ministry partners, and the wider Christian community. For a network that had long preached values like faithfulness, patience, and commitment, this sudden shift appeared at odds with the message Daystar had championed. The public reaction was swift and divided. Some supporters stood by Joni, expressing compassion for her as a widow seeking companionship and healing. Others, however, saw this as a troubling sign of instability in leadership and a departure from the principles they believed the ministry should uphold. The fallout wasn't limited to public opinion. Behind closed doors, key ministry partners and well-respected Christian organizations began to distance themselves from Daystar. The departures of these partners sent shockwaves through the ministry. These weren't casual decisions. Many organizations severed ties because they felt uncomfortable with the direction the leadership was taking. There were concerns not just about the personal choices of Joni and Doug, but about transparency, accountability, and the overall integrity of the ministry. Some ministries cited a lack of clarity and openness from Daystar's leadership, while others worried about the spiritual health of the network. As these partners pulled away, the financial implications for Daystar became evident. Donations and funding, which had once been robust, started to dwindle. Donors who had trusted the network's leadership and mission were now questioning where their contributions were going. Rumors and reports about extravagant spending and financial mismanagement began to circulate. Some critics accused the leadership of prioritizing personal gain and lavish lifestyles over the ministry's mission and the stewardship of supporters' gifts. This perception further eroded trust, creating a cycle of suspicion and distancing that was difficult to reverse. Compounding the crisis was the internal division within the Lamb family itself. Joni's children, who had been seen as the future of Daystar, reportedly grew increasingly concerned and frustrated with the direction the ministry was heading. Their worries weren't just about family matters. They reflected deep concerns about the network's future and the legacy their parents had built. These internal struggles became public at times, exposing rifts and tensions that added to the ministry's instability. It was a powerful reminder that leadership crises are often personal, with very real emotional and spiritual costs. The broader Christian community watched all this unfold with a mixture of sadness, confusion, and concern. Daystar's troubles raised important questions about what happens when a ministry loses its moral compass. Leadership in Christian organizations carries a unique responsibility because it involves not just management but spiritual guidance and example setting. When those at the helm make choices that contradict their teachings or fail to demonstrate accountability, it can have ripple effects far beyond their immediate circle. For many, Daystar's decline was a cautionary tale about the dangers of pride, poor decision-making, and the failure to prioritize transparency and humility. Despite the challenges, some remain hopeful that Daystar can recover and rebuild. Recovery would require honest reflection, a recommitment to the ministry's core values, and a willingness from leadership to be accountable to both the congregation and the wider Christian community. It would also involve healing the family divisions that have played out so publicly and restoring trust with partners and supporters. However, this path is neither easy nor guaranteed. The damage done over the past few years has left deep scars, and restoring Daystar's reputation will take time, effort, and genuine transformation. In the meantime, the Daystar story serves as a reminder of the fragile nature of leadership, especially in ministries where personal faith and public responsibility intersect. The fall from grace experienced by a network that once inspired millions illustrates how quickly things can unravel when leadership falters. It also highlights the need for grace and discernment within the Christian community. recognizing human frailty while holding leaders to the standards they are called to uphold. The coming years will be crucial for Daystar as it seeks to navigate this crisis and determine what kind of future it will build. The eyes of the Christian world remain on this once great ministry, waiting to see if it can rise again or if the shadows cast by recent controversies will define its legacy forever. Grief is one of the most profound and personal experiences a human being can go through. It is messy, unpredictable, and deeply individual. When someone in a high-profile leadership position experiences loss, the grief they carry becomes complicated by public expectations, the demands of leadership, and the constant scrutiny of others. This is the difficult reality Joni Lamb faced after the death of her husband Marcus Lamb, co-founder of the Daystar television network. Losing Marcus was not just a private tragedy. It was a loss felt by millions who looked to him and Joni as spiritual guides and leaders. But grief, in all its complexity, does not pause for public roles or leadership duties. From the very beginning, Joni's path after Marcus's passing was a difficult balancing act. On one hand, she was grieving a beloved husband and partner. On the other, she was thrust into the position of leading a major global ministry with eyes watching her every move. This dual reality placed enormous pressure on her. Pressure that would only grow as she made decisions that affected not only herself, but countless others. The challenge was not simply about personal healing. It was about how grief influenced her leadership and the direction of Daystar. One of the most significant and controversial developments was Joni's rapid transition into a new relationship with Dr. Doug Weiss, a well-known Christian counselor. To many observers, this relationship appeared to develop very quickly after Marcus's death, sparking questions and concerns. Grief is not a neat, linear process. It cannot be measured by a timeline or a calendar. Yet in the public eye, people expect leaders to embody patience, wisdom, and stability, especially in moments of profound personal loss. The speed with which Joni moved on was jarring to many, raising difficult questions about the interplay between private pain and public responsibility. The complexities of leadership in such circumstances cannot be overstated. Joni was not just an individual processing grief, she was a leader whose every choice sent ripples through a vast ministry. Daystar had built a reputation on strong family values, faithfulness, and integrity. When those values seemed challenged by the speed and nature of Joni's new relationship, it was natural for followers, partners, and even family members to voice concern. The situation exposed how deeply personal decisions in leadership roles can become intertwined with public perception and organizational health. Grief itself is unpredictable. Some people find solace quickly, while others take years to heal. But leadership often demands a kind of strength and steadiness that seems at odds with vulnerability. For Joni, the pressure to maintain a public image of resilience while navigating her own heartache was immense. There was little room for the natural ebb and flow of grief when cameras, broadcasts, and public statements constantly surrounded her life. The emotional weight of mourning was compounded by the demands to lead, make strategic decisions, and inspire others who looked to Daystar as a spiritual home. Furthermore, leadership in ministry is not just about administrative skills. It's deeply connected to spiritual accountability. Leaders are expected to model a life of faith and wisdom, setting an example for others to follow. This expectation places additional burdens on those in leadership when their personal lives are under scrutiny. The choices Joni made, especially regarding her relationship, were not just private matters, but became a focal point for debates about integrity, faithfulness, and what it means to lead well in a spiritual context. The rapid changes following Marcus's death also highlighted the fragile nature of leadership transitions in family-run ministries. Family dynamics and business often intertwine, making personal losses all the more complex. Joni was navigating grief alongside the responsibility of upholding a shared vision with her late husband. But as she moved forward in new directions, tensions grew within the family and ministry circles. These tensions were a natural consequence of change, but were made more difficult by the overlapping roles of family, faith, and leadership. The pressures to move quickly, whether to fill leadership gaps or to maintain momentum, can sometimes lead to decisions that don't fully consider the long-term implications. In Joni's case, her swift remarriage raised questions about whether the necessary time for healing was respected, both by herself and by those around her. It also brought to light the importance of community and counsel in leadership. Wise leadership often requires the ability to pause, reflect, and listen to trusted voices, especially in times of personal upheaval. Grief doesn't just affect the individual. It affects the entire ministry. Daystar's staff, viewers, and partners all felt the reverberations of the leadership changes and personal choices made by Joni. Faith communities rely heavily on trust, and when leaders appear to move in ways that seem inconsistent with shared values, it can erode that trust. The fallout was not just about a relationship, but about the future direction and credibility of the entire ministry. Throughout this period, Joni's story became a case study in the difficulties of leading while healing. It illustrated the human side of ministry leadership, where sorrow and strength coexist uneasily. Her journey underscored that leaders are not immune to life's trials, and that their responses to grief can have profound effects on their communities. The public and private turmoil revealed the tensions between personal recovery and public duty, reminding us that leadership involves not only making decisions, but also navigating the messy realities of human emotion and spiritual responsibility. In the end, the complexities of leadership during grief are a reminder that no one walks these paths alone. For Joni, the hope remains that through reflection, humility, and support, she can find a way to lead authentically, while honoring the memory of her late husband and the faith community she serves. For all leaders, her story serves as a powerful example of how grief and leadership intersect, and how the choices made in those moments shape not only personal journeys, but the lives of many who look to them for guidance and hope. The journey forward for Joni Lamb and the Daystar ministry is filled with challenges, but it also holds the potential for accountability, healing, and restoration. After the turbulent times marked by personal loss, public scrutiny, and internal conflict, the path ahead demands not only thoughtful reflection, but also a deep commitment to transparency and spiritual renewal. This road is never easy for anyone, but especially not for those in leadership roles, who carry the hopes and trust of many. What lies ahead for Joni and Daystar is a test of character, faith, and the willingness to confront difficult truths. Accountability must be at the heart of this process. For a ministry that serves millions and holds itself as a beacon of Christian values, acknowledging mistakes and taking responsibility is essential to rebuild trust. It means being honest about what went wrong, not only in personal decisions but in leadership choices that affected the ministry and its followers. Accountability is not just about admitting faults publicly. It involves creating systems within the ministry that promote transparency and allow for constructive feedback. This might mean opening the doors to independent reviews, involving respected voices from outside the immediate leadership circle, and demonstrating a genuine desire to learn and improve. Without this foundation, healing cannot truly begin. Healing is the next critical step, and it must happen on several levels. For Joni personally, grief and the emotional wounds from public conflict cannot be rushed or ignored. Healing requires time, patience, and often the support of trusted counselors, friends, and spiritual guides. It also means making space to process not only loss, but the pain of criticism and fractured relationships within the family and ministry. Healing for the broader Daystar community is equally important. Viewers, staff, and partners who have been hurt or confused by recent events need to see signs of genuine repentance and care. Healing can be fostered through open communication, listening sessions, and renewed emphasis on the ministry's core mission, encouraging faith, hope, and love. Restoration goes hand in hand with accountability and healing, but reaches even further. Restoration is about rebuilding what was broken: relationships, reputations, and a ministry's spiritual integrity. It calls for humility. Leaders must be willing to admit where they have fallen short and to seek forgiveness from those they have wronged, including family members, staff, and the audience. This may mean difficult conversations behind closed doors, mending fences with estranged loved ones, and recommitting to shared values that once united the ministry's community. Restoration also involves setting new standards for leadership, making changes that prevent the mistakes of the past from recurring, and demonstrating through action that the ministry is moving forward with renewed purpose. The road ahead is not just about fixing what is broken, it's about transformation. Joni Lamb and Daystar have the opportunity to become an example of how a ministry can emerge stronger after hardship. By embracing humility and grace, this transformation requires consistent effort, the courage to face criticism without defensiveness, and a commitment to spiritual principles above personal or institutional pride. It means showing the world that faith is not about perfection, but about perseverance and a sincere desire to live according to God's will. The ministry must not only preach these truths, but embody them in every aspect of its leadership and outreach. Throughout this process, the support and prayers of the wider Christian community can be a powerful source of strength. True restoration is never accomplished alone. It requires the encouragement and accountability of a community that cares deeply about faithfulness and integrity. For those who love Daystar and want to see it thrive, now is the time to hold leaders accountable with love, to pray earnestly for healing, and to stand ready to welcome restoration with open heart. The ministry's future depends on this delicate balance of truth and grace. Looking forward, it is important to remember that setbacks and failures are part of any journey, but they do not have to define the destination. With intentional steps toward accountability, genuine healing, and wholehearted restoration, Joni Lamb and Daystar can navigate the storms of the past and move toward a future marked by renewed trust and spiritual vitality. It won't be quick or easy, but with faith and determination, it is possible to rebuild and even flourish. This journey will require patience, courage, and a constant return to the values that first inspired the ministry's mission: love, truth, humility, and service to God and community. In conclusion, the road ahead for Joni Lamb and the Daystar ministry is challenging yet hopeful. It is a path that calls for honest reflection and bold action, both personally and institutionally. Accountability lays the groundwork by fostering transparency and responsibility. Healing nurtures the wounds, allowing growth and renewal. Restoration rebuilds what was lost and sets a new course for the future. Together, these steps offer a chance not just to recover but to transform, a living testimony that even in the face of trial, faith can endure and thrive. The journey will be watched closely, but with grace and commitment, the ministry can reclaim its place as a source of inspiration and spiritual guidance for millions.